Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are live across our various networks right now. In case you're wondering, if you're just tuning in, and well, first of all, who is this guy? Well, we do a live show every day across these networks at 8 o'clock Eastern time, or as close as we can get to it. But we had some major difficulties this morning, technical difficulties. So I decided rather than working on them and doing the show real late this morning, I would come back in and do it live today at close to 1 o'clock as I could get. So here we are. Let's get into it. We got a great show for you today. I hope you had a great weekend. I did. I was out in the Gulf of Mexico bouncing around, and I do mean bouncing. It was pretty topsy-turvy, a little bit rainy, but I did catch some fish. Won the grouper jackpot, and it basically paid for my trip, so I got to fish for free, which is always a good thing. I get things for free, not from the government, but from my own efforts. But in case you're new to the show, I am somewhat of a fish whisperer. They call me the old salty dog. Make fishing great again. This is my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1. Mine is at John Martin Talks. And we, ladies and gentlemen, are determined to stay in the mainstream media, so to speak, of social media. No matter what, they're going to have to kick us off or drag us off. We're going to stay on there. But we got a great show for you today. We start with Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, is taking over the establishment from the inside. She's not an outsider. She's more of an innie than an outie, and she's taking the squad with her. They're assuming leadership roles, and we're going to get into all that and the ramifications of that. But before we go any further, I always have to talk about our sponsors, and our main sponsor is BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. To check out any of our sponsors, go above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it, and you will see a description of our show, and you will see various links there. And one of them will take you to our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. It's clearly identified. They are, by the way, your Second Amendment headquarters, because not only can you get guns and ammunition at factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door, including over 100,000 other related items like tactical gear, survival gear, and even swag, but they being BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited, defend your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis. And we also have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Go to there, patriotthreads.org. Remember our initials of our show, John Martin Talks, JMT, for 20% off. Essentially what they do is they are a total fulfillment center, so they can produce t-shirts, patriotic-themed wear, gear, and stuff for charity events that you might have, and they can even help you get the money to the charity of your choice. So check them out. Remember the promo code 20% off for JMT for patriotthreads.org. Then we got Recoil TV. They're all about the Second Amendment. They have their own YouTube channel called Recoil TV. Of course, we have our own John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. But Recoil TV produces high quality videos about Second Amendment gear, for instance, like the latest guns, rifles, ammunition, pistols, those kind of things, demonstrations on how to use them, all of that. And we have a channel within their channel that archives our videos. So check out Recoil TV. All right, let's get into the, as I like to call it, the meat and potatoes of our show here. This is a Bloomberg article we're using as a template. Ocasio-Cortez allies move to court establishments, not fight it. Now there she is. Now she's looking very dapper there, is she not, Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? And she's playing by the rules of the game now and trying to move up in power. It's all about power. Leading progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had a choice after they won election in 2018 and expanded ranks in 2020. She not only ran and won in 2018, but she got reelected in 2020, and they added to what they call the squad. I call them the Twitter twats because I actually think it's a better, it describes them better. but they're after real power. But the challenged Democratic leaders from the sidelines are get in the game. So these people that either won when Ocasio-Cortez did or got elected in 2020 are having to make a decision. Are they going to be on the outside looking in, or are they going to play the game? And they've decided to play the game. But see, when you look at somebody like, say, a Marjorie Taylor Greene or Congressman Boebert from Colorado, and especially Miss Greene, she's having trouble, of course, mainly because of the Democrats, but she got kicked off of her committees and that type of thing. But the problem is when you have an outsider that comes from the right, so to speak, from the MAGA agenda. Well, the MAGA agenda is already outside the establishment, right? So anybody who's like really big time MAGA, America First agenda, is going to start behind the 8 ball when it comes to the establishment of either party, and the Republicans certainly aren't immune to this. So somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to have a harder time being true to herself and at the same time playing the game enough to get committee assignments and like that. But Ocasio-Cortez and her ilk, think about this. It's much easier for them because they're a natural, because the Democratic Party, as it's currently construed, is all about big government. And what are hardcore progressives? All about big government. So it's not really a big leap for them to get right in there and get busy because they had the same essential agenda. The Biden agenda and the Ocasio-Cortez agenda aren't really that far apart. But let's say if Marjorie Taylor Greene were in there, and last Republican before we had Donald Trump was George Jr., well, they would start out miles apart to begin with. So it is a different situation for the Twitter twats. Now their decision, back to the article, now their decision to play by Congress rules is giving them clout in a government under unified Democratic control with President Joe Biden. Well, as I say, this is not a big deal. It's easy for them to lock up, and in a good way, so to speak, if you want progressive agenda. My main goal, ladies and gentlemen, I will say this towards the end, but I might as well say it now. In case you're new to the show, watching at a new time, we're normally on, as I say, at 8 o'clock Eastern, but today's a little bit different. Tell me how you like it. You know, we may play around with the time if you like it better. We'll see. But my main political goal now is to stop the progressive takeover of this great nation, to stop it or at least slow it down some, because it is wide open right now. And I don't care if you're running for outhouse, the White House, Park Bench, or Park Avenue, somewhere in between. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to judge you, and this is probably not fair, but at least I'm being honest about it. I'm going to judge you based on whether you're helping me meet my goal, which is stop the progressive takeover of this country. If you are, then we can talk. If you're not, I don't really have a whole lot of time for you. But Ocasio-Cortez and the rest of the squad, or the twats, as I like Twitter twats, they're easily going along with the Biden administration, because remember what Biden has said himself. Check out this short clip.
Only then can we govern after the election as the most progressive administration since FDR.
There you go. Biden has been saying, and you got to give him at least some credit for honesty in this sense. I mean, he lies about so many things, but he's been telling us during the lead up to the campaign and even after he's elected that if he were elected, he was going to be the most progressive president since FDR. And a couple of times he's even said he's going to be the most progressive president, period. So this should be no shock that the most progressive president is having no problem working, or Ocasio-Cortez, I guess I should say, and people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they have no problem fitting in with the Biden administration, because the only argument they have is over how big the money should be, not whether we should be spending it. Think about the infrastructure bill, it's a so-called infrastructure bill. Biden wants it to be $2 to $3 trillion, right? Well, Ocasio-Cortez wants it to be $10 trillion. So that may sound like a big gap, but the Republicans don't want all the nonsense that Biden is putting in the bill. But Ocasio-Cortez wants more nonsense. So the only disagreement they have is over the size and scope of it, not whether they should do it or not. Back to this article. Members of the Representative Ocasio-Cortez's so-called squad, and I call them the twats, are taking leadership roles in the House and building experience on Capitol Hill, turning them into not just ideologue purists, but also strategic legislatures. Remember when Ocasio-Cortez, back when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, they announced it like that afternoon. Well, Ocasio-Cortez, she was in classic Democratic form, because remember, the Democrats say never let a crisis go to waste. Rahm Emanuel was Obama's right-hand man and became mayor of Chicago. Can you believe Chicago, you'd ever miss Rahm Emanuel? He wasn't a very good mayor, but he's 10 times better than what you got now. On a side note, how could you ever think you'd miss Rahm Emanuel? But remember, take advantage of any kind of crisis. Ocasio-Cortez said this when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Check it out.
Let this moment radicalize you. Let this moment really put everything into stark focus, because this election has always been about the fight of and for our lives. And if anything, tonight is making that more clear to more people than ever before. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to get more and more and more clear up until Election Day. Things are going to happen.
Things are going to happen. And I'm telling you right now, if you think that you've seen the worst, you haven't. If you believe in this country, if you believe in the U.S. Constitution, trust me on this, it is only going to get worse, because these people are just getting cranked up. They're just feeling their oats, so to speak. And Ocasio-Cortez and the rest of her squad are ready to go, believe me. And they got a wind behind their back. And why wouldn't they feel empowered? Look at what's happening. Back to this article. They're talking about the squad. They're gently pushing a bolder Democratic strategy and meeting regular with White House aides, bringing liberal dreams like a $15 federal minimum wage and a permanent child tax credit within reach. Now, I've talked ad nauseum, maybe, but at length about the minimum wage. Let me just give you a quick synopsis in case you're new to the show. When it comes to the minimum wage, I am adamantly opposed to a federal minimum wage. It is idiotic, in my opinion. It makes no sense to have a federal minimum wage. I'm not all that big fan of the minimum wage, period, but a federal one makes no sense. And I'll give you a quick indication. If you're working and living in New York City, it's kind of hard to do either or right now. You know, $15 an hour is peanuts. You can't get much at all for $15 an hour. But if you're living, say, in some parts where I live in Florida, or say you're living in Wyoming, $15 might be a lot of money. Wouldn't be much in California. Probably quite a bit more in South Carolina. So the idea that one fits all minimum wage at the federal level makes zero sense. To me, if you're going to have one, it needs to be at the state level, and then it can be competitive, and we'll figure out what works. But the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, on the minimum wage is minimum wage will always be exactly that. The minimum wage. I don't care how far you raise it to, the economy will adjust and you're going to be at the bottom. And let me just tell you something. Minimum wage has always sucked. It's always sucked to make the lowest amount of pay at the scale. And it always will. It doesn't matter how much they raise it, it will suck. And it's designed to be that way. Minimum wage is to help you get into the job. But I like how they get in the job market. But I like how they talk about now they feel empowered to do a bolder Democratic strategy. Bolder Democratic strategy. Because let me just tell you, it's scary to think about this, but if you want to know how far the Democratic Party has gone away from the party of my father, let's say, then all you have to do is watch a once famous Democrat, JFK, when he was president. I guess he'd be a right-wing Republican right now. They'd probably call him a Nazi, but check him, or a communist, even though he fought the communists, was the mainstay of his administration. But check out JFK's famous line from his inauguration. Check it out.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Amen. Ask not what your country can do, but what you can do for your country. There's nothing in the Democratic Party today that is about doing anything for the country. It's all about what's in it for me. And even the giveaways that they're doing and everything else, it's all about that. So the party of Ocasio-Cortez, in fairness to her, really, the party that she finds herself right in the middle in is nothing like the party that I grew up with. There's no comparison. So maybe she needs more education, so to speak, or battling ignorance and apathy on a daily basis. Because in fairness to her, and I want to try to be fair, maybe these younger people like her just have no clue what we've already lost. That's what I kind of find. Rather than starting a rival group within the Democratic Party, this is important, listen to this. So rather than start their own progressive party, it says far left members are joining and taking leadership positions in the 95-member Congressional Progressive Caucus. It's a huge caucus, right? That's been around for 3 decades. So this is nothing new. They've been around for 3 decades. These progressives have been hard work. While we've been kind of sleeping at the switch or sleeping at the wheel, they've been working overtime. Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar, also elected in 28 and one of the prime members of the TWATs or the squad, now leads the CPC's vote counting team. So she's one of the most important committees within this Congressional Progressive Caucus. And I tell you all the time, well, let's just play this video because I want to remind you of who now is one of the leaders in the Democratic Party. It's this lovely young lady right here.
Something. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Somebody did something. She's talking about CARE was founded. She's talking about 9/11, for God's sakes. She's talking about somebody, the people that crashed into the Twin Towers, that hit the Pentagon, that those patriots took over the plane and instead of hitting the Capitol, landed in that field in Pennsylvania. Those people, somebody did something, and then CARE, the Council for Arab Islamic Relations, I think, something to that effect, that Ilhan Omar's, that was started after that because somebody did something. Now, you've probably heard me say this before, but one thing about me, I am not politically correct. So if this is the first time you're watching the show and you came for political correctness, it ain't happening, brother. The truth, as my friend Craig says from patriotthreads.org, is the truth, as he likes to say, it starts now. So when it comes to like Ilhan Omar, I use it's the duck theory. If it's a duck, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, guess what? It's a duck. Well, she is supported by terrorists because Hamas funds her campaigns through CARE, and Hamas, a terrorist organization, actually founded CARE. You can look all this up, or you can take my word for it. You'd be right either way. But so she's supported by terrorists. She in turn raises money for CARE, which is a terrorist supported organization. So if you take money from terrorists and you raise money for terrorists, then what are you? You fill it in the blank, man. Back to this article. There is a different approach, or this what the Twitter twats are doing and what the Progressive Caucus is doing within the Democratic Party. This is a different approach than Tea Party Republicans took after they were elected in 2010 at the midpoint of the first Obama term. Now, of course, now he's in his 3rd term, apparently. Instead, talking about the Tea Party, they challenged GOP leadership and spurned the existing conservative Republican study committee to start the Freedom Caucus and draw a starker ideological line. But let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and it does me no joy to say this, the Tea Party's efforts, and I'm not saying they went to waste, but they were squandered by the Republican establishment. That is for sure. Now, aspects of the Tea Party morphed into a lot of what happened with the MAGA agenda. And so, there might not have been a MAGA agenda without a Tea Party. So, and I kind of got I switched parties during the Tea Party movement because I was just fed up with the Democratic Party I grew up with. The first person I ever voted for president for was Ronald Reagan, so that kind of tells you where I started from. But I was a Democrat here in the South for a long time. My whole family was. But the Tea Party, about that same time, I was really antsy about what was happening. and I started noticing the Tea Party. Now, I'm pretty politically astute, especially locally here. But my first Tea Party meeting, I'll never forget it. I went to a hotel, and there were about 200 people there. And really the thing, these are 200 people that were kind of getting woke politically for the first time. And here's the beauty of it. I didn't know a soul in that room. And you couldn't have told me that there would be 200 political activists in Alachua County, and I wouldn't know half of them probably. I didn't know any of them, and it actually excited me. I said, man, something is happening here. But the Tea Party's efforts, in my opinion, were largely squandered by the Republican Party. But this group, it says here, in my own opinion, this group, the new progressives, if you will, the revitalized progressives under Twitter twats like AOC and Ileana Omez and Rashida Tlaib, this group actually fits right in to the modern Democratic Party and really the establishment of both parties, to tell you the truth, because basically it's rats at the trough. If you don't think I'm right about this, then let's hear from one of the oldest geezer, the kind of the godfather of the progressive movement. Let's hear from Bernie. Check it out.
Come up with a compromise. And I think the compromise that they came up with, if implemented, will make Biden the most progressive president since FDR.
So there you have it. I mean, you couldn't have a better statement than the Burn Man. But let me just tell you, Bernie Sanders is a swamp rat. He's a swamp rat. He is part of the establishment. He has been up there since he got off the ark as like first or second mate there or something. But the swamp, ladies and gentlemen, it didn't take long to fill back up. President Trump never got the chance to really drain it. I was kind of hoping he would kill it off in the second term. And we may get that one day. Who knows? But to make no mistake about it, the swamp is there. The rats are at the trough and at the gate. And I wanted to show you that because, and let me just tell you this about Bernie Sanders very quickly to you Burnites. I hadn't talked about this in a while. Bernie Sanders is a sellout to the establishment. He always has been. I don't know that he ever wanted to be president. He certainly didn't in his second run, and I'll explain that in a minute. But even in his first run, he dropped out, endorsed Hillary Clinton, never really worked hard against it, and got 4 or 5 houses. We're going to talk about houses here in just a minute. But Bernie also, when you think about it, he had one shot in 2020 to be president, and that was to knock Biden out of the race. Go back, I'm not going to play any clips of it, but go back and look, I believe it was a CNN debate. Bernie Sanders was kid gloves, throwing puffballs to Joe Biden. If Bernie Sanders wanted to be president, he would have had to fight for it, and he didn't. So all of you people that are saddened about Bernie, I hate to tell you, I warned you about it at the time. You were sold out from the beginning. The only anti-establishment candidate in the race for presidency through all the 2020 Democratic field and everything else, the only anti-swamp draining guy was running for re-election, and that was Donald J. Trump. And you guys never got behind him. I'm talking about the Bernie people, and you got behind the Joe Biden. But let me just tell you, talking about houses, I don't know if this is a side note. I started to do the story on it. It's in the New York Post. Check it out. But Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter movement. And you see these, this is no surprise to me because the lady in the black dress there is like one of the, these are co-founders. She's like one of the chief forces behind Black Lives Matter. Literally wrote the book on it. That's her hugging up to Nicolas Maduro, the dictator, the socialist dictator of Venezuela. So that tells you really all you should ever need to know. And this was several years ago. Well, there's a story out now that she has been, her and her wife, it's all, the whole Black Lives movement was started by hardcore black lesbians. I'm just telling you the truth, and they're communist Marxists. You can do whatever you want with that information. It is simply a fact. But this woman has gone on a house buying spree, has bought up 4 or 5 houses, and is looking at property in the Bahamas where the smallest price for a house is $5 million, and they go up to $20 million in this neighborhood that she's looking at. That's where all that corporate money, if you're wondering where your donations are going for Black Lives Matter, they're going to fatten this gal up. And think about this, she's a Marxist communist, and she's getting into the house flipping market. It doesn't get much more capitalist than that, man. But hey, it is what it is. Back to this article. Democrat Moderator Jones, gentleman from a newly elected representative from New York, just got elected in 2020, who joined the Progressive Caucus vote counting team. So he's on the committee with Ilion, somebody did something somewhere, Omar, said focusing on gettable policies. Because, see, that's the thing you got to understand about progressives. It's all about implementing policy. That's what it's all about. The other things like the Constitution are just in the way. It's about policy. On gettable policies while building consensus for bolder moves, you ain't seen nothing yet, is an explicit strategy. And as I said, it's only going to get worse. Listen to what new Congressman Jones said. He said, where can we get victories? We should be concentrating our energies on those places like lowering the age of Medicare eligibility over getting a floor vote for Medicaid for all. So they just want to implement government takeover of our medical care, health care. Since there isn't currently enough support, this is what the article says, support in the House to pass more comprehensive universal health care program progressives would like to see. So they're going to do it by steps. Let me just tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't talked about this for a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. Make no mistake about this. Obamacare was a means to an end. All what they ultimately want, what the progressives, including Obama, by the way, who's now in his third term with Joe Biden, that the only thing they ever wanted was a complete takeover or in a sense, government-run health care. That's all it was. They knew they couldn't get it in one shot, so they put Obamacare up there. Do you really believe that that website that Obama paid somebody billions of dollars, one of his cronies apparently, was a mistake when it was messed up? It wasn't. It was part of the plan, ladies and gentlemen, because once and they've gotten it thanks to people like John Roberts at the Supreme Court, got their foot in the door, we are ultimately going to have a total takeover of healthcare in this nation. I think it's inevitable now. There was a time when we could have stopped it, but I really believe it's inevitable now. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the plan when Obamacare started. And make no mistake about it, it is the plan right now. It's always been the plan. The White House is now regularly consulting with the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which has been around since 1991. Like I said, they've been around a long time, but previously held little power. Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic or plandemic relief bill included a temporary child tax credit to give families recurring monthly payments, which progressives would like to make permanent. So the progressives want you to be permanently dependent upon the federal government. Because think about this: if you ever you know people like this. If you ever start getting a government check and there's limitations, even for God's sakes, people on Social Security that legitimately have earned it are scared about taking on other work, even as a hobby, because they might get their benefits cut. It's going to be the same thing with this universal guaranteed income. Once people get that income, it is a trap designed for you to stay poor. Because what did the Democratic Party always tell you right in the last decades or two? They are the party of the poor. They're also the party of the billionaires, but that's another story. But they say they're party of the poor. So what do they need? More poor folks. So they keep you trapped on government subsidies. That's what it's all about. And that's why they keep bringing in all these illegal immigrants. The same deal. But it says here, the liberal Democrats were also advocates for direct payments to individuals and for housing and food assistance. They're also talking about reparations because they want you to be dependent on the government. They want you to become a slave all over to the mail-in check. That's what it's all about. But they talk about moderates. Joe Biden, because I take these progressives at their word. That's one of my axioms. You don't have to guess where they are. I believe Joe Biden when he said he's going to be the most progressive president ever, basically. I believe Bernie Sanders when he said that's what Joe Biden is, because they talk about moderates. Who's a moderate in the Democratic Party? Maybe Joe Manchin, maybe this cinnamon chick or whatever her name is from Arizona. I hope they are, but I can tell you this: the modern Democratic Party has no room for moderates. Because what do you find moderates? With the skunks and the dead possums in the middle of the road. That's the only place you find the moderates is roadkill, man. There is no room for moderates in the current Democratic Party. They just persona non grata. Omar, not to be outdone, said progressives need to take advantage of the slim majorities. See, Democrats always act as if. I want to read this again because I want to ask you when we're finished with this paragraph. This is the way the Democrats operate. Have you ever seen the Republicans when they are in the same situation that Biden and they are in now when they control both houses and the White House? Have you ever seen them do this while I'm reading this? Omar said progressives need to take advantage of the slim majorities Democrats have in the House and the Senate, and the CPC will be pushing to influence Biden's next major bill, a $2.2 trillion and growing, Ocasio-Cortez wants it to be $10 trillion, economic proposal, the infrastructure bill is what they talk about. Do Republicans ever do this? Ever? Remember President Trump came into office with an amazing vote total, electoral landslide, really truly had a mandate. Did old turtlehead Mitch McConnell do anything to really help Donald Trump other than the judges, which he was helping himself? And I'm glad. Think about this. Donald Trump came in and he had to work with Mitch McConnell and Paul Dadgum Ryan. If you want to know, for instance, why Fox News is going down, maybe it coincides with them appointing Paul Ryan to like their corporate executive board. I don't know. I'm just saying there's a correlation there. But think about this. When you think about old turtlehead we think about old turtlehead Mitch McConnell, who is now the majority leader? It's this guy right here. Check this video out.
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions. The bottom line is very simple. We will stand with the American people. We will stand with American women. We will tell President Trump and Senate Republicans who have stacked the court with right-wing ideologues that you're going to be gone in November and you will never be able to do what you're trying to do now, ever again.
That's good enough. Now contrast that, ladies and gentlemen. Remember there was this guy on January 6th. I want to say his name was Donald J. Trump. And he stood up there and said, hey, now go and peacefully, we're going to walk over to the Capitol and we're going to do our patriotic duty and we're going to peacefully protest. Peacefully protest. Now that guy is accused of leading an insurrection that started before he ever even finished his speech, if you even more, whatever it was called. And he never said a threatening thing in that speech. Yet what happened to him? He was impeached even after he left office, for God's sakes. Impeached, an illegal impeachment, unconstitutional impeachment, even after he left office. Chuck Schumer gets on the steps of the Supreme Court and tells them, we're coming for you. Talking about the Supreme Court judge. You'll never know what hit you. You're going to face the whirlwind. There is more commitment to violence and more incitement to violence, literally calling for violence from Chuck Schumer than even the most radical thing that Donald Trump said anytime in his rallies, let alone on January 6th. Donald Trump was rewarded by impeachment. What was Chuck Schumer rewarded with? By what he always wanted to be again, the majority leader of the U.S. Senate. He controls the U.S. Senate. So he was rewarded. It is, when you start talking about a double standard, there is no double standard. That's one of my axioms. There's only one standard. Somebody like Donald Trump is held to a standard. Name me what standard Chuck Schumer is held to. I'm waiting. Chime in on Facebook. Chime in on BitChute or Rumble or that we're on now. Chime in on our YouTube channel. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. Let me know. Tell me what standard Chuck Schumer is held to, because I can't figure it out. There's a standard for people like me. We get, deplatformed and everything else. But what standard is there for the progressive left? I haven't seen one. But let me check my time. Doing pretty good. Back to the article. The attempt to unionize workers, they're giving some examples of how the squad, the Twitter twats, the progressive movement, is working within the mainstream of the Democratic Party. The attempt to unionize workers at one Amazon Incorporated warehouse got support from several members. This was in Alabama. Several members of Progressive Caucus, Michigan Democratic Andy Levine, he's a piece of work, part of Omar's CPC vote counting team, traveled to support the effort along with Nakima Williams. I mean, if you know who these people are, Jamal Bowman, and Cori Bush. She's from Ferguson, Missouri. Cori Bush is an absolute communist and a strong member of Black Lives Matter. Literally, now you think about this. You have the Palestinian Authority has a representative in the House of Representatives, Rashida Tlaib. The Hamas has a representative in our House. The leaders at the highest levels that are in Ilhan Omar. And now you have Black Lives Matter literally has a congresswoman in this Cori Bush in there. These are people, they're in the Democratic Party, they're at the highest levels of power. All progressives, and they were all there at this particular event, elected in 2020. They joined Representative Terry Sewell, whose district includes part of Bessemer, Alabama, where they were unionizing or trying to this Amazon place, where the warehouse is located. And I'll tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, here's the bottom line on these progressives. We're going to cover a little bit more, but I got to give you the bottom line right now. It's one of my axioms, if you will. Progressives can't be reasoned with. They can't be dealt with. Can't be negotiated with. The only thing you can do is defeat them at the ballot box. That's it. You cannot compromise with these people. This is part of the effort, back to this article, by progressives affiliated with groups like the Justice Democrats. That's where Ocasio-Cortez got the wind under her sail, to win over voters and their congressional delegations as a way to bring new form of democratic and progressive representation. I don't know what's different. To Congress in places like Alabama and Texas that are Republican controlled in so many ways, according to Waleed Shahid, Justice Democratic spokesman. So they're working overtime. They've been doing this for 20, 30 years. They're working overtime to try to flip Texas and places like Alabama. And I know it's an uphill battle, but they're making progress. And that's all. They're a lot like the communist Chinese. They have a lot longer view. These people never tire of politics. They never rest. I know it's, people like me, you want to go fishing on the weekend, they go to events. They organize. That's what they do. They never, ever tire of politics. And I know a lot of people on the right, so to speak, or even moderate people, they want to not think about politics 24/7. And I get that. People say, like, I've talked about this, people who are into, like, the Second Amendment. That I've met a lot of people over the last few years with BDU, not the company itself, but people who are into firearms. And they'll tell me, hey, I'm just not that interested in politics. And I tell them, well, you better get interested because politics is extremely interested in you. Think about what just happened this past week. We did a show on Thursday and Friday, kind of. Go back and look at our podcast. You can go to like BitChute now. You can go to Rumble. You can go to YouTube. You go to John Martin Talks Facebook. You can go to America's Voice News. If you have never checked them out, they are a great alternative to the mainstream media. They're kind of like Newsmax in the sense that they're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can download free apps on your Android, your iPhone, Channel 219 Dish Network, and the Pluto channel. We don't currently have a live show on there, but we're archived on there every day. So go to whatever streaming channel you use, look up America's Voice News, click on the site and look for the shows tab. You will see us there. But like I told you last week, man, about the Second Amendment, look what has happened in less than a week now. Joe Biden has literally made law-abiding citizens that were simply practicing their Second Amendment rights potential felons right now. You might woke up, a patriotic American. I went to bed a patriotic American, woke up a felon, man. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you better get woke in a hurry. But Representative Jones went on to say the outreach will help, talking about places like going into Texas and Alabama. He said the outreach will help keep the progressive momentum going even when former President Donald Trump is no longer a unifying force for Democrats, even when, and here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, see, they learned, they thought about, doing the Green Party and whatnot, but they've learned, these progressives, and it took them basically 30 years to do it, now maybe even longer, but certainly they've been real active, as this article talks about, in the last 20, 30 years. They've been slowly but surely taking over the party of JFK and turning it into the party of AOC. And I don't see how you could look at it and see that the current Democratic Party, I'm not saying every Democratic voter, but name me one real leader that is a moderate, dead skunks and possums in the middle of the road, remember, in the Democratic Party. The leadership, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are the oldest establishment figures they are, and they are about as far left as you can be. And so these progressives have been working, chipping away, whittling away, eroding away, and now they own the Democratic Party, and they own Joe Biden. Joe Biden is Obama's third term. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I say all this to say this: we could take a little lesson from them. Instead of, the worst thing we could do is stay at home. I'll tell you about that in a second. But we need to take over the Republican Party, lock, stock, and barrel. When I say we, people that believe in the MAGA, America First agenda, we need to take over the Republican Party. And you start it at the local Republican level. The sleeper, to quote Dune, the sleeper must awaken. See, we've been in a long slumber, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, since World War II, basically. With the sacrifices that were made, and it kind of sprung our country into the modern world, we've been pretty fat and pretty happy. Well, we got to get out the hammock, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not saying you got to be Ocasio-Cortez and just be politics 24/7. I can do that for you. You need to have your daily fix of JMT, and you need to share it everywhere else, because I kind of believe, like the dealers say, try one for free, and let people see my show, and I think they may get hooked on it, but it's a good thing. But the sleepers got to awaken. We got to come out of our slumber. As I told you, my only goal right now is to stop the progressive takeover of this country. And I need your help to do it. I need you to share this show far and wide. I need you to search us out, because we're being, knocked down by these algorithms. We all do deference to algorithm all the time. But I need your help. I really do. So support our sponsors, support our show, share it far and wide, because my only goal is to stop the progressive takeover of this country. And so I tell you all the time, you say, well, how do we do that? Here's what you got to do. You got to educate yourself and others. That's why I battle ignorance and apathy on a daily basis. So educate yourself and others. You got to motivate yourself. Wake up, motivate yourself and others. Everybody from 8 to 80 and even beyond has something they can do. Go volunteer in a campaign. Volunteer at the Republican Party. Take the party over. So educate yourself and others. Motivate yourself and others. And once you've done that, you got to activate yourself and others. You got to do something. And we got to eliminate the people that are out there. And I'm not talking about anything other than voting them out. The Democrats just need to go, period. They're a lost cause if you care about the Constitution. Republicans, we need to make sure that we follow the president's lead, President Donald Trump's lead, and we need to, assuming he's going to do what he said he is, promises made, promises kept, I have no doubt. And in 2021, 2022, we got to follow his lead and vote a lot of these rascals out and put some solid MAGA people behind it. Because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll conclude with a cheery video, because right now we are currently losing this fight. We are losing to these progressives because we don't stay in the fight like them. We get knocked down. We don't turn out in large numbers to vote in Georgia, and they win. That's the thing nobody wants to talk about. I understand to stop the squeal. We don't say the F word here, the voter mod and all that. I get all that, and we need to fix that. And they're courageously so far in Georgia they are, in other states, and that's why it's got the Democrats going ballistic, because they know if what happened in Georgia recently happens across the country, then they're out. They know that, so they're trying to get all they can, but they never stop. Ever. They don't rest on their laurels. And right now we're losing this battle. That's why I battle ignorance and apathy daily. I educate, motivate, activate, and in some cases eliminate We got to vote people out. We got to do this, ladies and gentlemen, because right now the Constitution is on fire, and the ashes of it are being literally celebrated like this. You got to give Ocasio-Cortez, man. She's got mad skills, and the good Lord gave her a lot to work with. I ain't going to deny that. But I'm telling you right now, they are celebrating, but they're not resting on their laurels. They are digging deeper, and they're going for the fences. Major League Baseball, they're swinging for the fences. There was over 100 corporations this past weekend, and we might talk about this later on in the week, that had a Zoom meeting talking about how they can stop what happened in Georgia from spreading across the country. We cannot let that happen. We must wake up. We got to wake up. We got to listen to shows like us and spread the word. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go to our Facebook page, like it, share it with others. YouTube, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. We're on a lot of social media. We're getting ready to revamp our website. We're getting ready to really gear up, and I'll have more details about that soon. I'll pray for your family. Let's you pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation, because she needs it, and God deserves it and needs it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.